heard you, all of you share kind of individually, maybe different pieces, that you know, obviously you're very much involved in this church, fellowship, ministry, serving different formats. But and I'm not playing Candy Crush here. I'm just reading some notes. You were kind of looking for a different type of fellowship that didn't exist outside of life groups or maybe when we do social gatherings or lunches after church. Lavelle, why don't I start with you, because I know that you were kind of the one who actually found this resource.
Yeah. So I'm pretty new compared to Jessa and Queenie. They grew up here, been here for more than a decade, and coming to Lord's Love Church and not being able to connect immediately only because of COVID. Everything was online. So I had this conviction to really connect with sisters in Christ who can challenge me, who I can be open to, be vulnerable with. But it's obviously not just anybody. You really have to just kind of see who those are, those puzzles that fits in your life, in seasons as well. So so when we came back in person, I slowly started talking to everyone. And intentionally, I talked to some of the girls and ladies here one-on-one, and I found that eventually, I really connect with Jess because of the pastoral situationship we have, where I need to kind of have a soundboard to so what does it mean to be a pastor's wife? And as well as Queenie, we were in life group, and I just know that she was also longing to have that connection with other women, hence the women's afternoon tea happened. And so it just kind of happened, and a lot of it was prayer and putting yourself out there.
That's awesome. So to jump over, maybe Jess and Queenie can comment. Obviously, as Lavelle is kind of bringing these ideas forward, this is also when women's afternoon tea, these kind of formations, and I think it's great what started with the men's and women's fellowship. How does the concept of this change from that, from your perspective, and why you wanted to start yet another thing? Because women's fellowship is also new. I realized that wasn't on the script.
I guess what I gathered from your question is so when Lavelle kind of reached out, it wasn't anything formal. I think she just wanted to connect and just talk about some of her struggles. She had questions. It was we just had, did we have coffee? We done so many things together, but I think it was coffee. And it was really just a place for us to have conversation, uninterrupted conversation, because Sundays are often very hard. And I don't think I knew about the Women's Fellowship at the time, actually. So having these one-on-one conversations and really getting to know her, also not just obviously she had questions for me, but it was reciprocal in the sense that she had questions and she was sharing her struggles, but similarly, it gave me a chance to be you know what, I also struggle with that. You're not alone. I've been struggling with finding community, even though I've been here for more than a decade, like you said. So eventually when we did meet, I think Lavelle, after we met up, wanted to talk about Women's Fellowship, and had Queenie in the conversation as well. We all met up. It did seem like a natural progression, and it was exciting to hear that we're doing this fellowship model in terms of getting people together and trying to build community. But it was out of the basis of first intentional relationships with each other. It wasn't just, I didn't get the sense that it was just a social event. It wasn't a thing that we're just doing, but out of the heart out, people really wanted to have intentional, authentic relationship with each other.
Anything to add to that, Queen? Cool, we pass. Let's move on. Okay, so Lavelle, I'm going to pop back to you for a second, because you found this resource. Where did you find it, first of all? I thought the origin stories. And second, what kind of attracted you to the model other than the catchy title?
Yeah, it was a Christmas gift from one of our roommates, well, one of my roommates when I was living in a community home. So I actually have the book. It's really tiny, so it's not going to be like, you can read this in an hour. So the concept of it was the spiritual friendship that's behind it, that yeah, I can meet up with 3 other people or 2 other people, and it can be fun, it can be, you know, it can be as deep, it can be as not as deep. But yeah, so when because I was in a season in my life where I wanted to connect, and my faith is something that really holds me strong, but I know I can't do it by myself. So it was very important for me to have an authentic friendship with women who are also who are also of faith. Because I also, well, to just kind of backtrack a bit, I chose the Christian life at the age of 23. So I didn't grow up I grew up with like non-Christian friends, non-believer. So they were my friends, and the conversations, I guess, that I would have with them it wouldn't be as deep. It wasn't like challenging me, it wasn't speaking truth to me, but rather like, oh yeah, like you deserve, like they're always biased to my side. But I didn't want that. I wanted someone to challenge me so that I can confess what I can't be always right, like, so I have friends who will always take my side, but I need someone to like challenge me, speak truth in love. Speak truth, capital T, lovingly towards me, and challenge me to be transformed like Christ, honestly.
That's really cool. And so Queenie, like when the Lavelle reached out to you, like what were your kind of thoughts? I guess you could just say you concur, but don't do that because I already did. But what were your thoughts on like? Because I know at the time you were serving as a deacon, I believe. You wear many hats at this church. Actually, now that I think about it, I've known Queenie for more than a decade. Our longest conversation here at the church was when she was doing the membership thing with me. So it can get busy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, when the bell reached out to you, what were your kind of thoughts?
Well, the very, very first time that she reached out, I was actually taken aback. Because like you said, I've been at this church for so long, and especially when you grew up in the church, the relationships that you have are typically the ones that, again, you grew up with. So a lot of my community at this church were people that I grew up with, or just naturally, maybe they came along later on to church, and maybe we're in the same age group or what have you, and so it just always kind of just worked itself out. I never felt like I had to seek out any friendships or was really sought out. So it was weird when Lavelle reached out to me one-on-one.
Scary.
And said, we want to have coffee. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Which as an introvert also very like intimidating. But it ended up being really good. Like we had a really great conversation, and she mentioned we were already in a life group together, so we sort of knew each other, but then hadn't had too many conversations personally up to that point. So it was kind of weird, but then it was like a good weird, like, oh, this is refreshing to kind of meet somebody new at a church that I've already gone to for so long, and for somebody to kind of be so intentional about it. Oh, and then so that was our initial meetup, and so the second time I think that Lavelle reached out, she had mentioned it would be the 3 of us, and I was like, oh, that's great, jazz, so I was like, oh, we'll just hang out and have, I think we had high tea. I'm like, oh, that's so nice. So just changed my regular routine. I just started, no, it was still working. So yeah, I'm like, oh, that's so nice. And then that conversation was when she introduced 321 to me. And already hearing it without having read the book, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm on board, 100%. Especially if it's this group of 3, yeah, totally. Not knowing anything about it. But really, it was because I think Doug had mentioned too, like after being in so many life groups and small groups, and nothing against those groups, I think, and those seasons, it was great, but then feeling like I was still missing something, like that was great, but I needed more. So when they kind of explained 321 to me, I'm like, I think this might be it. Like, as personally speaking, I think that kind of was the thing that the kind of relationship and setting that I felt like I was needing more of, intentional friendship, but spiritual friendship, yeah. So it was great.
Cool. So I was gonna pick your brain on what that missing something is, but as I look around the audience, I saw a lot of nodding heads. So I feel like everybody kind of resonates with what you were talking about, and maybe you guys feel it too. So I don't have to keep asking. But like, I know you mentioned something like talking about introverts and talking about, bigger groups are easy to hide in, right? Like as an introvert myself, like I understand like it's easy to hide in a big room with a lot of people. It's harder to hide in a life group when there's less people. And then when there's only 3 people, well, if the 2 other people aren't talking, guess what? It's you, right? So like, what is your experience with that? Because I can almost understand like I wouldn't say fear, but it's one level below fear, where it's like I do want what you're talking about, but at the same time, the idea of being with just 2 other people kind of makes me nervous. Like, what are your guys' kind of thoughts on that?
I think my initial thought is if actually for me as also an introvert, it feels less scary coming into a group of 3 who are like-minded and come into it with the same desire, same intention of wanting to grow. I think for me, having been in a lot of life groups and different kind of community groups, sometimes it takes a lot of effort to kind of gauge where everyone is. Like, even in a small group, and I've loved our small groups, like it gave me an opportunity to actually get to know people, but kind of like what you were saying, sometimes it felt like there wasn't even enough time in a small group to get to know people individually. So going into in that kind of setting, I think I've always struggled with understanding what vulnerability meant. And we've talked about this before as well. And being in a community, my inclination is wanting relationship with people. But sometimes you don't always receive it from others as well in the community. You want people to share deeply. You want people to share their struggles. And we know that's what the church is supposed to be, but in reality, we don't often see it and we don't often experience it. So I think for me, since being a Christian, since university, I've always craved that. So over the years, I've also learned kind of what not to do, in the sense that I think I have kind of thrown myself out there, but like tried to show vulnerability to people by kind of sharing my struggles with people, whether or not they were ready for it. And I've learned the hard way that actually wasn't true vulnerability, and it actually hurt me more over the years, in the sense that I would try to reach out to people, but people weren't necessarily ready for it or didn't know how to receive it. So over the years, there was accumulated hurt and whatnot. So the difference now, I feel like, with an intentional group of 3 is we know what we're getting into, and we all have a desire to want to grow in Christ. We've agreed, like the book also sets the tone in the sense that it stays within the 3 of us. It's a safe place to share our struggles, and I think that's a great first step to being vulnerable with each other, and being able to meet like every month and come back to that same place, and that is true vulnerability, and it's less scary because you know other people are ready to receive you and ready to walk alongside you.
Isabel, you want to answer?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add on to that. I think it's true, like, it's less scary to be in 3s actually, but that comes with conviction. You can't just enter in and, be vulnerable or there's some sort of like mutuality that comes to it, and with that, I don't think it's that scary when you enter in. It's scary to enter into it because you know that the part of confessing, part of you where you wanna be more like Christ, and that I think that's the scary part. Is like you would have to share some things that you don't normally share with someone, and that ask for prayers. But once you're in it, and the conviction to really want to grow more like Christ, I don't think it's that scary.
That's awesome. So to kind of just piggybacking off what both of you said, understanding the 321 groups are obviously about relationships, and that's going to be a buzzword that's going to be coming over and over again tonight. But I think something that both of you mentioned was that all three of you have an eagerness to grow more like Christ. And so to ask the leading question, all right, like how essential do you think that is to the formation of each 321 group?
I would say it should be the first one. Like it's very important. I think I would encourage everyone who are wanting, we know that we're missing something. There's that void that we're longing for. I would say pray on it. Don't just jump in it because out of fear of fear of missing out, or also don't back out because you're scared. So I'd say it's very important, and like the process. I think prayer is the most powerful tool that we have as Christians. So pray on it, discern.
Cool. And to be for practical sake, how long did you pray on it before you actually asked Justin? Then we need the whole timeline. We're about the program with MEs here.
I think in God's timing, honestly, when we met up, it wasn't because like I'm gonna create this 321 group. It was more so I've been going through challenges for the past 2 years. A lot of it is community challenges and my identity, and what the identity I'm entering into. So if I were to just kind of look back briefly here, it'd be 2 years of me praying for those right people to walk alongside me. And it so happens, so thank you to Doug who wanted to watch a movie with, just invited a casual, I think the whole church, essentially, whoever wanted to go watch a movie. And so Howard's like, yeah, we're going. And I'm like, well, am I invited? And it's like, I think it's only guys. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I guess I'll go find people to hang out with. So, and it just so happens to be that at that time, everyone was away. Everyone was in their weekend getaway. And then Jess and Queenie were available. So I'm like, okay, do you guys want to go get high tea and just kind of talk and get to know each other? And I know they both know each other because they're associated by marriage. Yeah.
not to each other.
Yes. But yeah, it was all God who did that in the end. It wasn't my intention to be like, I'm gonna start this 321 group. But God knew what I was longing for. So 2 years, I'd say.
Okay, so I wasn't as answer I was expecting. But I know as Reverend Doug later explains the logistics of it, there is time to kind of think and pray on this. It's not something like, sign up sheets are in the back, make sure you sign up before the end of the week or something like that. Howard, how was that movie? How was the movie you watched? Top Gun 2, right? That was a good movie. Okay, so moving back to the 321 groups. How has it been so far? It's been 3-4 months, something like that, or more?
I'd say I've been into our 6.
Yeah. So without sharing anything that actually happens in the group, we'll talk in vagueness. How has the experience been so far? Let's do a good thing first. What's the best thing that's happened that's come out of the group without sharing any detail? Queenie's frowning, so I'm going to pick on her first. I think she's got a good one. It's okay. We can wait probably 2 years. Or if anybody else wants to go first.
Best thing. Well, one of the good things. Well, I mean, one of the good things is having the space to get to know these other two ladies more. Even just hearing other people's stories, I think I realized that's something I really missed over the last few years, is hearing other people's stories, but ultimately how God is working in other people's testimonies, really. And so as I hear them share about how God is working in their lives, it encourages me and reminds me that, like, okay, like, He is the Lord, that there is hope in the things that I struggle with or in the things that I'm facing. So that's been a great thing already, just to hear, their stories and their lives. And also just to have people who you can turn to for prayer, even like in between the 2 hours once a month. Like, we obviously have our own WhatsApp group, and so there have been moments over the last few months where somebody else is struggling and the other two come on and kind of prayerfully support them. It's always nice to be on the receiving end of that as well, obviously, but then to be able to do that for somebody else is great too. Oh, 2 things.
Oops. So to dispel the myth, you are allowed to talk to each other outside of the 1 hour.
I would hope so.
Okay. Jess? We're at 2 hours.
One of the good things. Same thing you said, but it's kind of that. I think it's just that safe place to come together and you know why you're coming together. Like, it's just refreshing in itself. Where I don't particularly enjoy small talk. It's very draining for me. And sometimes, meeting up with someone, you're like trying to go through the layers until it's like eventually it's like, okay, let's get to the good stuff, and then it's like, oh, it's time to go. Versus coming into this, like, we can jump right into it, and it's like, not that there's no time for talk, like, obviously I want to know about their lives, but we jump into sharing our struggles so freely, and we expect that, and it's great. Like, I don't feel like I'm killing the vibe or like I'm oversharing. Like, this is why we're meeting together. We want to hear about each other's struggles. We want to walk alongside each other. Like, bring it all. So that already is super refreshing. Yeah. Oh, and also, sorry, second thing as well, 2 things. It's just the reminder that we don't have it all together. I think that has been really nice, where we come into it, like, we all strive to want to be more like Jesus, and we want more of Him in our lives, but we're always reminded day to day that we are not there, and it's frustrating. And when we share with each other our struggles, and knowing, like, that is our ultimate desire, we can share about that, and I'm not alone in my brokenness, and being reminded that my fellow sisters also struggle with that. Not that it's like, yeah, go, like, good job, you're struggling. It's more just like, we're in this together. We're broken, and we've got each other.
I echo what Queen Anne just said. It's accountability. That's one. And they talked about safe space, but I also want to add to that, it's a brave space. So it's a safe and brave space because we're able to be vulnerable with one another. And just, I've seen spiritual growth in me, and just, I'm more inclined to pray for them than just pray for what are my struggles like. So that's been really helpful too. So in a way, it's been shaping my spiritual discipline for others and for myself, inevitably.
Cool. So since kind of being in this group, what kind of adjustments have you had to make? It could be good, could be bad, and up to you guys to interpret. Just in terms of because it is somewhat like a routine, right? 2 hours a month. But it's like the same 2 hours, or like what adjustments have you had?
We talk longer than we expect. So I've learned to just free up the 2 hours after that.
Breaking more rules.
Yeah. I think that's an adjustment that you just gotta go through it. There's a lot of things that are happening. So, yeah, I think that's one for me.
I should say you don't have to expect to go over. It's also nice to know that like the intention is 2 hours, so if you have a busy life, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started it, I'm like, oh, 2 hours once a month, easy peasy, like, not a big deal. And then each time as we end, we set a time for our next month's meeting, and it's surprisingly hard to find a 2-hour window where it works for all three of us. So, yes, it sounds like 2 hours once a month, easy, but in the busyness of life, like mother, working, church, serving, school, like it's hard. And so I feel like it requires a shift in your mindset in terms of how you prioritize and schedule your time. Because part of it too, which is for me, is really bad, but in the book I think it mentions, once you commit to it, you can't reschedule, which sounds really scary. Unless for extreme circumstances.
Jess is a nurse, right? Like, there might be times she's needed.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I say that, but it's also like, you know, things come up, and obviously, I think your group, it's a conversation that you have to have in your group, but again, it's that shifting of your mindset more so than anything else, in that like, it's just 2 hours a month, but at the same time, it's 2 hours once a month that I really want to schedule in, that I really should be scheduling in, that I'm going to prioritize to meet with these two other people. And honestly, like again, in the busyness of life and work and church ministry, I often find that it's these 2 hours that I come after a long week, and it's like I can finally breathe, like I can catch my breath, and I don't feel like I'm coming in having to give and pour out, that I can kind of just and yeah.
So it kind of sounds like, to interpret a little bit, this experience has been more life-giving than oftentimes when we make habits or groups that end up, you know, I don't want to say they're not beneficial, but they do drain our energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of, and by the way, if you have questions, feel free. I'm almost out. But so, you know, they're sold. They bought the infomercial. They got the extended warranty. They want us to do one group. You already got the first step in talking about praying and discerning. What would be the next step in terms of, like, you know, who might be available for a group? What kind of mentality? How should they prepare? How should they practically, you know, look to getting into a group? Lavelle?
I'd say because the process I did was, I was intentional of meeting with some of the, well, yeah, like it wasn't just me and Jess that I talked to, I also talked to other ladies out there. So I would say to be intentional, and we do have those fellowships coming up as a bigger group, so I think those would be a great place for you to really kind of get to know who you can connect with. And yeah, just being honest that it's, you know, there are people that you connect more than others because of common interests and like seasons in life, like, you know, motherhood, maybe someone's in school per se. So that being said, yeah, just be open to that, just be intentional in how you, just connect with people.
Jess, Queen?
Well, you're all here because you're interested. So if you look around the room, there's other people who are interested, but also outside of this space too, is, like you said, who do you already connect well with? I think what we've learned is we have good chemistry already, one-on-one, and we are able to talk to each other well one-on-one. So who is, well, I would say start with one other person that you connect well with, and then the two of you can connect with.
Nice. +1 +1. Anything to add?
Testimony.
know where an interaction that you have with someone can lead. Sometimes just having the time to ask someone even on Sunday, like, I know how was your week is very vague. Like whatever your version of checking in with someone, and sometimes people are craving that, right? Sometimes someone just wants another person to ask how they're doing and to be available. And if you see like someone wanting to kind of talk more, don't limit yourself to Sunday. Like we live life and follow Jesus 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And take initiative to be like, hey, you want to go for a coffee? Like after church, hey, do you want to go grab lunch? It might not be 2 or 3, 2, 1. Like don't feel like every interaction you need to have like this like serious commitment to each other. Like I think it starts with having conversations. Like what Lavelle said, like you wanted to get to know people, you reached out to different people, and even though you're not in a group with every single woman you met up with, those are key relationships that you're building. So just being on the receiving end of someone reaching out as well, like it gives an opportunity for someone to share. You never know where that goes, so don't be afraid.
Awesome. So that's all the questions I got. Well, I think we're going to take a break now. I don't know what's happening after the break.
There's a Q&A after the break.
So we're going to do a Q&A after the break. So, got some time.